All right, let's call the November 2022 regular board meeting of Mountain Parks Electric to order. We have all directors with the exception of Jeff present. We're starting at 8:04. Well, we can see that on the live stream for Levi's minutes. Let's take a look at the minutes of the previous meeting, the October board minutes. Does anyone
Liz, do you want to modify the agenda to remove item number 3?
Yeah, item, oh, I should update mine. Mine doesn't say item number 3, but
Okay, it's the executive session that was planned between 8:30 and 10:30.
we have no need for the executive session that was between 8:30 and 10:30. So I'd like to go to the minutes, and then if we have the gentleman for public comment, listen to him, and then we'll go into staff reports, if that is agreeable to people. Okay, seeing no objections. Welcome, Jeff.
Can you hear me, Liz?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Sorry I'm late. Just trying to get set up.
No worries. We're all a little bit
Yeah.
okay. So we're at the minutes. I guess they should reflect that Jeff joined at 8:06. It's the first time he's been late to a meeting. And Jeff, we're on the minutes. Do you have any comments on the minutes? Any changes or comments?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments, changes on the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October
Thank you, Carl.
2022.
Who wants to second? Kristen seconds. All in favor? Okay, motion passes. Okay, we don't have, do we have Levi yet?
We do not, so I would suggest we move on to my report.
Okay, let's do that. And we don't have the public comment, or we do have some?
We do have the public commenter in the waiting room, but no Levi yet.
Okay,
And we can do the public comment if you would like. I don't think that there is anything that he is going to bring up that the board might need legal advice on. And if there was, it would probably need to be discussed in executive session. So
absolutely.
Levi is joining right now.
Okay, and why don't we let Mr. Ladko in as well?
Done.
you're on.
Sorry, I'm back.
Thanks, Justin.
It wasn't Levi. I apologize. It was Justin again.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's Levi. Jack's on.
Oh, so we do not at this point have the
Public commenter. It
public
looks like.
comment.
Like
Well, then let's go to Levi.
now, do you have an attorney report for us, Levi?
Yes, I got it in late. I believe Tiffany uploaded it last night.
Yeah.
Other than that, nothing for open session. No.
Okay,
What?
Mark, you're up.
Okay, community solar. I had a conversation on November 3rd with Cloudbreak. They're the ones that we had selected to do the community solar. Talked about a number of things. Talked about where they thought the cost might go for the project based on what they originally gave us. And they believe they can still work within the numbers that they gave us. They are preparing a draft PPA to send over for our review. And once I have reviewed it with staff, then we will give a report to the board on that. And part of that report will talk about the revised economics of the project based on the proposed tri-state rate increase, and then taking into account the possibility of issues related to 119 that are there. So we will provide an analysis of that project. I believe that we can still do the project and it will be economic. And based on my conversation with Cloudbreak, it may be slightly more economic. So we'll find out as we move forward with that project. The FERC CTP, the parties, including United, the indicated members, Guzman, Tipmont, which is from another GNT, the Wyoming Cooperatives, the Wyoming PUC, and Tri-State all filed exceptions to the ALJ's initial decision. And those were filed on October the 31st, fitting that it would be on Halloween. I had sent out this morning, I thought I had already sent them out, but I sent out those exceptions to the board this morning. No action at this point on the Commission on Partial Requirements. Kristen.
Just wanted clarification, that was CTP, not partial requirements.
Yes, the exceptions were filed in the decision, the ALJ's decision in the CTP docket, and the BDP or partial requirements still pending, and there hasn't been anything that has been done that I'm aware of at this point. Any other questions on those first three items? Seeing none, moving on to FEMA update. I will give an update related to that in the finance report, just because I just got the email on that. And fiber update, Connexon still has not responded to the draft agreement that we sent to them on August 15th. We have sent the agreement to another third party, one that we have discussed with the board in executive session, so you're aware of who that is. We have not publicly disclosed who they are at this point. We have a meeting with that party on, well, tomorrow, on Friday, and we expect to start conversations with them about that draft agreement to provide fiber to the home using the our backbone. We also we've been contacted by, or Joe has been contacted by about 15 entities that are interested in accessing our backbone to for services. And those parties, we don't have an agreement in place in order to be able to provide them that service. The draft agreement that we sent to both Connexon and the other third party, it contemplates that we would provide service to entities within our service territory prior to having the fiber to the home agreement in place. And there are provisions that allow us to sign up other entities, and then we create what are referred to as legacy agreements. And those would subsequently be transferred to whichever party did the fiber to the home. As a result of those legacy agreements, MPE receives revenue off of those agreements based on the draft that we have put forward so far. We have a meeting with our fiber attorneys and Levi on November the 1st, or we had a meeting. And we are in the process of developing that agreement to provide the entities within our service territory access to the backbone. We will hopefully have that in place, or a draft of it at least, within the next couple of weeks. So I would guess that timing is probably the beginning of next year before we would be able to offer any service to anybody. I will pause there to see if anybody has any questions on any of those topics.
Mark, this is Carl. I have a question.
Sure.
Just for my information, when an outside entity attaches to the fiber backbone, where does that occur? Is that a central station somewhere, or is that anywhere they want to tap onto it where the line runs?
And the answer, Carl, is it depends. What we would probably do, depending on where they were, and the design of the project, we would have them tap into an area that we have predetermined for that. If they are outside of one of those areas, we would have to determine what it would take to connect them to the backbone.
Well, the reason I asked that is I know initially VistaBeam up here was interested in attaching to our backbone. I don't know if they're one on the list, but is there a station then going to be erected or someplace in North Park where somebody from Jackson County can tap that?
Yes, the system is designed to accommodate entities within Jackson County that would like to access the fiber, and so it may be like I said, it won't be anytime soon. It will be early next year, and part of it is that we are actually developing two different agreements based on the anticipated types of service that we think people will want. And so depending on the type of service that they want and where they would want that service to be, that will be a determining factor of where they would connect to the backbone.
One final question, is that involve Mountain Parks erecting some kind of a substation or a facility at a location in like Jackson County?
And most likely not.
So that would be the responsibility of the person or entity that wanted to attach, correct?
We will have equipment within Jackson County that allows us to light the fiber for use by us and others. And depending on where they would want it, and if there was equipment required for that access, then they would pay the cost of connecting to the system.
It sounds like.
Okay,
It sounds like.
thank you.
Thanks, Carl. It sounds like you guys are working on those details in that agreement, and they'll get spelled out in that that agreement or contract that you're working on for those entities. How that will. So yeah. So broad brush we know, but the details will be in the.
Yeah. The devil is in the details. And what we know is that people have contacted us and said, hey, we know you have fiber. We may be interested, but we don't have details of what type of service they are looking for. And we don't want to attempt to get those details until we have an agreement in place. And that's what Keller Heckman, our attorney, is working on.
And I actually think you might get it. Should a lot of people watch this YouTube, customer service may get a gazillion million calls on this. So I think making sure that people know that this is, we're just starting. And I just think there are a lot of people who are at various locations who would love to have fiber, and we have to make sure that we don't inflate expectations that by January you can call and get your fiber connection and have things lit up.
And to clarify, the entities that have contacted us are large entities, towns, county, telco providers. This particular path forward for us would not provide fiber to the home for individual residential members.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. At the board meeting last month, the board discussed the creation of specific trade school scholarships and potentially expanding the current program to reach individuals that are no longer in high school. Rob did some research and has provided information related to trade schools that we identified in the Denver area. the programs that they provide, as well as the approximate cost. In his report, he will be prepared to answer any questions that you might have on that. We are, I would say, at the beginning stages of this discussion. And so as the board asks for more details, we will do additional research to figure out how we will make that work. And that document is under the public comment section in CTO. Any other questions on that before I move on?
Thanks for the research and the information.
Okay, the HR manager search, we extended an offer on October the 10th. It was accepted. The new HR manager will be Angela Wallace. She will be joining us on December the 5th. We still have the consulting agreement in place with Employers Council, and we'll probably keep that until after Angela starts. December the 5th, she will be here, and she will actually be able to attend our holiday party. The CFO search, we extended an offer on October 27th, and after some negotiations, the offer was accepted on October 31st. The candidate has completed all of the pre-employment checks with the exception of the drug testing, and that's because we have to have a start date to be able to do the drug testing, make sure that it is valid when the person starts. So because of that, I will not share her name at this point, but we anticipate that she will be on staff sometime late December or early January. Staff met with an organization called InBank, INBANK. The representatives of the organizations are ones that work for a number of years for Citywide, which is our primary financial institution. And they discussed with us a number of services that they provide. And as a result of that meeting, we asked them for proposals for providing MPEI's card program and fleet program. They have provided the proposals, and we are reviewing them now to determine whether or not they provide a better financial benefit to MPEI and better reporting for the transactions that take place on the MPEI credit cards and the fleet cards. So I will pause for a moment, see if anybody has any other questions on those. Seeing none.
Yeah, Mark.
Carl
here. With the issues you just referred to, is it wise to wait till the new CFO comes on board to do the final part of that, or not?
When I say we're going to be reviewing this, this will not happen until next year. There's a lot that we would have to go through and additional due diligence that we need to perform to see if they can actually even provide the program to us. The discussions that we had where they provided the glossy brochures that tell you about how wonderful the service is, and then they provided us with an agreement, which we have not even read through at this point. We have not provided to Levi for his input. So this is something that won't take place until next year. So the CFO will be on staff by that time.
Thank you.
The Winter Park land, the prospective buyer is still awaiting acceptance of the delineation study by the Corps of Engineers. I've been in communication with the buyer's representatives about closing. It is still possible that we will close the transaction in December, and there is an action item on the board's agenda today related to closing. It is somewhat contingent upon the Corps' acceptance of the study, and if not closed in December, the buyer will purchase the 30-day extension of due diligence, and the transaction will close in January. Any questions that I can possibly answer on that? in public session. If there are specific questions about the transaction, it's probably an executive session conversation. Seeing none, I will move on to the potential or to the lawsuit that we discussed with the board last month. MPE's counsel, and you recall that we identified outside counsel to represent us, Louis Roca and Levi have been working to settle that lawsuit filed by the member. The settlement would resolve all alleged claims, and we can provide further details in executive session. I'm pretty sure that Levi has an update because there's been quite a bit of activity related to that. Holiday office closures. MPE has historically been closed the Friday after Thanksgiving. With the new 410 schedule, the office is already closed on Fridays. And so we've had to make some changes to the holiday schedule and office closure schedule as a result of it. The day after Thanksgiving will actually be observed on the following Monday, which is November 28th. That provides us with at least 3 days in each week, the week of Thanksgiving and the week after. And then Christmas Eve, because it falls on a Friday, will be observed on Thursday, December 22nd. And the office will be closed on those days. Because this will be an issue going forward, and to address it in 2023, I have made the day after Thanksgiving a floating holiday. So staff will be able to take a day off working with their manager sometime during 2023. So we will no longer have the day after Thanksgiving as an official holiday. It will be a floating holiday. The one benefit to this is it eliminates the need to close the office on another day because individual employees will take days throughout the year. And so we don't have to have the office closed for a specific day. So I will pause to take a drink and also see if there are any questions. Seeing none, move on to community. I had a conversation with Patrick Brower, Grand Enterprise Innovation, or
Initiative.
Initiative. That's right. I actually wrote it right on my page. I just didn't say it right. On October the 25th to discuss installation of a level 3 charger in Walden. He is working with a local business that would like to install several chargers at his business. This is the individual that presented to the board, I believe, earlier this year. And he doesn't want to just install one. He wants to install several chargers at the business. He is currently working with the state to see what funds or grants might be available for the installation. And I told Patrick that the board has discussed this in the past, and we were waiting for the member to provide information to us related to cost and design and other things. And so as he gets more information to get back to us, and we'd be happy to consider it again.
Mark,
Yes.
sorry, you'd broken up on my end at the beginning. That was a discussion with, was it with Patrick Brower? Is that who it was?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing under community is MPE employees in the board donated $1,425 to help the Mountain Family Center purchase food. Based on the matches that we had talked about for that, MPE and the matches gave $4,275 to the Mountain Family Center to help them purchase food. And obviously Thanksgiving is coming up and they do food baskets. And so it is timely that we were able to assist them with this. Any questions on either of those two? The last item that I have is MPE's holiday party is on December the 9th. It will be the day after the December board meeting. That is a Friday. It is at Grand Manor, which is the restaurant that is located in the inn at Silver Creek. If board members have not already done so, please RSVP. You can either email me or you can email Kathy Crawford, and that's so that we have a count for dinner for the restaurant. It should be a great event. It will be our first one in 3 years. I think the last one was in 2019. So be great to be able to get back together. And with that, that completes my report, unless there are any questions that anybody has.
What was the date on that again?
December the 9th.
Yep. Okay.
And if there are no more questions, you have a copy of the safety report, and Adam White is available to answer any questions the board might have related to the safety report.
Are there any questions on the safety report? I have a question, Adam. Who gets to go to the Bridgestone Winter Driving School?
Do you want to go? It looks pretty cool. Now we're planning on sending some of our apprentice linemen. We'll probably do an employee from each outpost. We'll throw a foreman in there, then we'll grab a couple of office staff. So we're trying to get a cross section of the whole business.
Excellent, excellent.
Make a motion to approve the safety report.
Thank
We're
you.
not doing that anymore.
Okay.
Good thing someone's paying attention, Kristen. Okay,
Benefit of taking the minutes.
yeah, thanks for the safety report. Good job. And
Do we have the public comment person in the queue, Joe? Okay.
all right, let's go to the discussion and action items. Set the annual meeting date and time.
And you have there listed a date of May 13th, 2023 at 9:15 a.m. at the Middle Park High School in Granby. So same location as this year.
I'll make a motion to approve May 13th.
Is there a second? Craig? Just a little bit of clarification from my standpoint, and I'm glad Justin made that motion. I may not be here on May 13th, so Justin may have to step in. I have a planned trip, but we'll see if it actually comes to fruition. So, all in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. How about the vandalism policy? If people gotten a chance to take a look at the vandalism policy, there aren't any changes. Kristen?
Sorry, for the notes, who moved and seconded the annual meeting date?
Justin and Craig.
Thank you.
Any comments on the vandalism policy? Carl, you want to make another motion?
I move to approve policy C3 and make it available to the membership.
All right. Is there a second? Mark. Okay, all in favor? Motion passes. Okay, on to the scholarship program.
There are some edits in policy C4 on the first page of that.
Mhm. Yep. And it slots in the vocational training.
And that was included previously, but we tried to make it stand out a little bit more in the policy.
Yeah. So everyone go ahead, Craig.
I just had a comment. Yeah, I like the proposed changes. I'm wondering if, as we move along and we look at the information that was presented by Rob that we're going to go over later, that maybe we revisit this as needed, depending on how we come out with our vocational and technical language and allowances. I just noticed I like the changes in the first paragraph, and then later on it seemed like it was kind of getting back to the the high school graduates concentration. So there might have been a little wordsmithing down the road as we develop the program a little more, but maybe we just make these changes now and revisit it, not on the 3-year cycle.
Yeah, yep, that,
And Cray, we have the policies that come up in rotation, but a policy can be reviewed by the board at any time, so we can add it back to the agenda whenever the board would like to discuss it and make any changes necessary.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, that we just, as our discussions on technical vocational scholarships evolves, we just bring this up real quick and take a look at it.
a good idea. Thank you, Craig. All right, Mark Volt, what do you think? Should we pass this? You're muted. Can I have a motion if someone is interested in?
Mark wants to make that motion. He's just trying to unmute himself.
Okay. Mark moves that we pass policy C4, I think. Justin's the
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Approval of the 990. We approved in the minutes. It says we approved this last time, but it wasn't on the agenda, and so we needed to put it on the agenda. And so I guess we can have a motion to approve it again.
I'll make a motion to approve the 990 for 2021.
Is there a second? Mark's a second. All in favor? Okay, approval of the 2023 budget.
This is the budget that was presented to the board at their October meeting. And if there are any additional questions that we did not cover in that meeting or in executive session of last meeting, please let us know and we'll try and address those questions.
Does anything change between last meeting and this meeting that would affect the budget?
Only Cray's first name.
Does anyone have any questions for Mark? Go ahead, Craig.
Now I realize, Cray, that the page still has your name as Frank. We did change it with the document we just held over from last time.
Okay, are there any other questions? Does anyone want to approve the budget?
Motion to approve the budget?
Okay. Cray's a second. All those in favor? Okay, the 2023 operating and capital budget is passed. Jeff, you've been kind of quiet. Okay, the next action item, which I sent you all an email, is to appoint Amy Wolf to the Clean Power Committee. She's from Grand Lake, works at the Y, and the person who was on the committee is stepping down. One person is stepping down, so Amy would be the replacement. Should we ratify that decision that we made by email? Is there a motion? Is that a motion, Justin?
I think Kristen, but I'll make a motion.
Okay, and
I'll
Kristen.
second.
Okay, all those in favor of appointing Amy Wolf to the Clean Power Committee? Okay, the motion carries. ratification of actions taken at the October meeting. We unfortunately didn't get the Jackson Enterprise Initiative mentioned, I think, and so that is why this is on here, is to ratify our decision to give the $10,000 to the Grand County Enterprise Initiative and $10,000 to the Jackson County Enterprise Initiative, contingent upon them getting matching funds. How about a motion from someone or more discussion, one or the other? Okay, Mark Volt moves it, I believe, with his mic off, but I can read lips. Is there a second?
How would you like the motion worded in the minutes?
I think it's a ratification of actions taken at the October meeting, approval of Grand Jackson Enterprise funding.
Okay.
Okay, do you have that, Kristen?
I do, and who seconded?
Mark and Justin. Okay, the next action item is the Winter Park land.
And I will let Levi explain the actions that are being requested of the board.
All right, just a second. Let me get to that on CTO. Where are we at here? All right, first action item is a resolution to sell the property. The second item will be the statement of authority, which actually does not need to be acted on by the board, but is authorized by the resolutions. So to sell the property, which is contingent on the items that Mark discussed earlier, we need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Cray, moved by Carl, seconded by Cray. All those in favor? Okay, the resolution to sell the Winter Park property passes.
Hey, Kristen. When will you be able to? So the one thing that could change is the date of the your signature on that resolution.
Yep.
Unless you can get in today.
I probably could.
Okay. Just let me know if you don't get in today so that I can revise that and get it back to Tiffany.
Here's a question, Levi. Will you be driving through Fraser on your way home?
Yep.
As you could perhaps meet Kristen there, she could sign it. I mean, you'd have to scan it back, but anyway, just to look.
Let's coordinate on the lunch break, Levi.
Sounds good. Okay. And then Mark will need to sign the statement of authority and have that notarized.
I can do that.
Okay. And then those originals will go to the title company.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. So we don't need any action on the statement of authority.
It's authorized
Correct.
with the resolution.
Perfect. Does anyone need a break before we go into staff reports? Okay. Operations and engineering.
Adam Paulson.
All right. Morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Adam.
All right. You guys have the report that we produced in front of you. I have some additional updates on some highlights and some things that have happened since we filled out that report. An update on the Highway 125 project. I was up there yesterday. They're pretty much done excavating. which is awesome because it's starting to be winter. So they're just finishing up, setting a few vaults, and I really expect that project to be finishing up within the next week or two. The line that we had laying on top of the ground near the highway has been retired. They're past that point. So that's really good news. That was just kind of a scary thing, for it served its purpose, they get the power on up there, but that's really good news for Mountain Parks that we got that off of the ground, and that project's starting to be finished up. The Trail Creek project that we didn't get to this year due to material issues with we have all the material in actually for that project, and we actually just put that project out to bid this week, and we're hoping to get some good bidders on it, and hopefully before the December board meeting we'll have the bids and be able to bring that to you guys with those prices. We've been utilizing RMA engineering to not only help us with the workload in engineering with a variety, whether it be GIS, engineering consulting, but we actually got a couple of them here right now helping the stakers with the workload and training. They bring a broad knowledge of NISC and how it works, and so we're utilizing them in a twofold with training and helping with workload right now. So really excited about some of the stuff they can help us with, and we're hoping to that we can get some efficiencies and get some people trained up. And a couple of those people, Randy Mayu, that was on the line crew, moved over to engineering. He is taking Matt Reed's spot as a staker, so they're going to be working with him over the next couple weeks and just helping him come along. And actually we're hoping that they'll even be a little ahead with some of the tablet training and stuff like that they're providing. The fiber project is coming along. We are dealing with the end of the year is just really closing in on us on that. There is several road crossings and bores that need done yet, especially up towards Walden. I've been in several discussions with them. They're saying they're going to get it done, but we're working with them. I am concerned just with the timing of the year that they get these crossings done. We are going to have a good chunk of the fiber that we're going to be able to start utilizing once the equipment comes in. We got plans to start terminating it, and we will be able to start utilizing it. I'm thinking before the end of the year, as long as the equipment gets here, we should be able to use some of the fiber that's been installed. So if there is some things, a couple of these crossings that don't get done, like I'm pushing hard that they do, but if they don't, it would be first thing, as soon as the ground allows us that they finish it up first thing next spring. We have a couple of new employees that are starting actually on Monday. It's Laura Constinas, and I'm probably saying her last name wrong. She is going to be starting backfilling Leah McLean's position for the operations dispatch position. And she's bringing over 20 years of experience in the NISC software. So we're really excited about her starting, and will be a good help for Leah so that she can really start exploring and trying some new things out in her new job and role. We also have a new lineman starting on Monday, Isaiah Herod. These last names of these people we're hiring.
That's why you just use their first name.
Well, you set the precedent. I got to say the last name. He'll be starting on Monday. And then we also have a job offer out to journeyman lineman that we interviewed on Monday to backfill Randy's position for going to staking. So operations, if we get all those three positions filled, we'll be fully staffed, except for Kent Helinski, our fleet mechanic, put in his resignation, and we'll be looking for a fleet mechanic. And we are still looking for a GIS technician and a staff engineer. So that is taking up quite a bit of our of my time and several other people in the department's time, just trying to fill these positions. So I'm real hopeful that we can get fully staffed and start working on more efficiencies and new ideas in the departments. We got some good ideas before next construction season, such as like a simple service that we could offer the people. And possibly we got some good ideas on the job end process to help simplify that and be able to explain that to customers and our employees, to simplify things. Last thing I have is starting actually this week, we're going to start communicating with customers that we're not going to be sending out any new contracts for residential dig jobs until March. And the biggest thing going on right now from Craig and my standpoint is if we do a contract right now and we don't dig that job this winter, which we typically don't dig in the winter once the ground freezes, with inflation, this job will be way different price wise from right now to next March. And we don't want to mislead people that they pay this a price right now, and 4 months from now with inflation, the way we've been seeing things, that job could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 different. And that's not good for them or us. So we're gonna, if somebody really was in a bad way on a job, they can definitely talk to us. We try to help everybody out, but jobs this year just aren't stopping. They're continuing to come in, and we kind of got to just we got to try to table that so that they have good expectations when we're going to do it and the right price. So that's really all I had this morning. Does anybody have any questions?
When does that pause go into effect?
It not, we haven't communicated it yet to the membership. We're working on the communication that we will put in place to send out to, that we'll post on the website, but also start to communicate with members.
So we've been communicating, for quite a while with customers. You really, we're probably not going to get to your job till next year at this point. This is just kind of another step. We'll continue to design the jobs and have them ready to go come March. But in the past, we've sent out contracts. But inflation, we've had conduit this year in just a few months span, jumped 400% price wise. And it's actually conduit is actually more than the wire we put in it at the moment. And it's just really, it's hard to keep prices the same, and be fair to the customers and fair to all the other Mountain Parks members. So that is hopefully, I'm sure a few people will have some heartburn about it, but we really are trying to do what's best for everyone with that.
Liz, you're muted.
Any other questions for Adam? Thank you, Adam, from my perspective. Good report. And I think that's the right, it's the right tack. If a job isn't going to get done for, 5-6 months, then it's hard to get pricing now.
Yeah. I had it right at the front and I missed it, but it was a slower month for outages, which was really nice. And I just want to, very appreciative of all the hard work of all the operations and engineering employees. They really got caught up on just a huge workload. Again, last year was big with the fire jobs. and, regular construction, but, construction is just, it's going crazy up here still. And, the operations, they got it down to, about a 2-week out lead time on work. And, engineering, they've gotten the contracts and everything there. I think I have 10 outside my door right now that could be sent out the contract. And that's, it was out to almost 2 months, not too long ago. So, really good job, by both departments, just kind of trying to get the workload taken care of. That way we don't have hundreds of jobs hanging out this winter.
Excellent. Thank you. Well done, everyone. All right, Mark, the finance report.
You have the finance information in there. What you don't have is the narrative. And that will be updated because I'm going to go through the narrative now and we'll add that to call to order. Year-to-date revenue through September continues to be above budget. It's about $2.3 million or 7.4%. And when compared with last year, it's about $1.9 million above or 6.1% above budget, above last year. With that, the year-to-date September expense also is above budget, 1.9 million and about 6.6%, and about $2 million above last year, 7.3%. That's primarily related to the increased purchase power cost because we are selling more. That accounts for the revenue, but we do have to buy more power, and that accounts for the cost. Our year-to-date September margin continues to be above budget. It is about $730,000 above budget. That's 24% above where we anticipated we would be. But when you compare it to last year, the margin is basically the same. There's a difference of about $30,000. Our cash balance remains healthy at $13.5 million. And a big chunk of that will go out in capital credits, which we will issue in December. We have some good news on the horizon from FEMA. We have 2 projects that have been completed and are awaiting disbursement of funds, and those total $321,000. And then we did the first request for reimbursement for the Highway 125 project. And if you recall, when we discussed it, that is a slightly different process through the state and FEMA. It's a pay-as-you-go. So as we expend money, we send it in, and in theory, we get the money back faster. The first, they are referred to as RFR, and don't ask me what that means, I don't know. But it was $343,000. We have submitted, and that has been approved and is supposed to be in the reimbursement queue. We submitted 2 other requests that are in the review process, and those total about $1.3 million. So we have a total reimbursement that we are waiting for on Highway 125 of $1.6 million. And I believe we have another RFR that is in process, and we will submit that. Our hope is that we see that money as well as for the other 2 projects before the end of the year, and that would add an additional $2 million in cash and would bring us up for FEMA reimbursements to about $3 million. I mentioned capital credits. There is actually, they may be done now, but there was a meeting of staff, and they were going over the process to finalize the process to issue those capital credits. Rob tells me it's request for reimbursement, the RFR. So we have done the testing. We don't anticipate any issues, and so those credits will go out on members' December statements, and then checks will be issued probably sometime after December the 10th. And with that, I will open it up for any questions that anybody might have related to the finance report.
Seeing no questions. Let's move on to the information technology report.
So you have my written report. I'll just talk a little about the course I attended last week in November, or last week in October. The course was really informative. To not to be too cliche, but a lot like drinking from a fire hose with 5 very long days of instruction. Really well attended with about 30 students in the course. The 4 domains they identify in an effective information security program were all very good. The most disappointing one was the governance domain, in that ISACA has some very strict ideas with regards to responsibilities of different roles and who does what in developing and maintaining an information security program. You know, they scale well if you're a company with several thousand employees, but Mountain Parks doesn't have a chief information security officer, an information security officer, an information security technician, and on risk management and all these other job titles. And their ideas are very strict about who's responsible for what. That's a little hard to translate to a company with 60 or 70 employees like Mountain Parks. The other folks that had difficulty with that section were government folks, because the government defines the roles quite a bit differently as well. And there were several folks in the course from DOD and various governmental agencies. Otherwise, the other 3 domains, the risk management, the security program development, and incident management, those were extraordinary. I mean, really a lot of good information. I am continuing to study for the test. Hope to take the test late November, early December. A little apprehensive because the statistics are that between approximately 40 to 45% of students pass it their first time. So it's fairly difficult. Anyway, that's what I have for this report. If there's questions, I'll take them now.
Thanks for continuing your professional development, Joe. It sounds like a real challenge.
Yeah, thanks for sending me. It was eye-opening for sure.
Well, and it speaks to the fact that a lot of this is designed for really large companies, and yet I'm guessing the total number of systems out there, an awful lot of them are in smaller organizations. And,
Correct.
And it's, yeah.
Like I said, the actual development of the program and the maintenance and those pieces, very applicable, and we can implement a lot of it. And we actually have begun talking about how we're going to do some of that here in IT. The governance piece, a lot of it just doesn't align.
Yeah. So it's thinking about how to rework that.
Right. Well, the biggest piece is that you have to involve all the stakeholders. I mean, you know, they talk about setting up a security steering committee with your COO and your data owners and things like that. Well, no COO, so probably Mark or Mark's replacement, and the department heads will be involved in that. But you have to, they did talk a lot about how you have to get the various data owners, people who are, you know, the finance department in charge of their or owning their data, and get their input on what they expect from recovery and and things like that in the event of a problem or an event, I guess is the best way to say it. And historically we've talked about it, but we haven't, I guess maybe required input from the various areas, and we need to. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hey, Joe, what was the
Yeah.
name of the course again?
It's Certified Information Security Manager. It's the accrediting agency is ISACA, and I forget what that stands for, but it's ISACA.
Certified Information
Security.
Security?
Yeah,
Officer?
security manager.
Okay.
All right. With that, let's move on to HR. Mark.
Can I ask one question, clarifying question? What is an RF propagation study?
Radio frequency propagation. So we are I think you're talking about the Tantalus and the metering system. So we are sort of redesigning it to move away from the system uses two different frequencies. It uses a 900 megahertz frequency and a 220 megahertz frequency. The 220 megahertz part of our system is problematic. We pick up a lot of interference in the Fraser Winter Park area. It's also expensive because we have to lease a license for that section of the system for those frequencies. And it's also slow. I mean, the amount of data you can move on a 220 megahertz frequency is a fraction of what you can move at 900 megahertz. So we are engaging Tantalus to redesign the RF propagation to eliminate or greatly reduce our dependency on 220 megahertz. They're going to tell us where to locate things throughout our service territory to improve our coverage and our reporting from our metering system.
And the fiber will also help significantly with the communications related to the metering system.
Correct.
Is the Grouse Mountain, is that Forest Service or is that BLM?
Forest Service.
Excellent. All right. On to HR.
Okay, Adam talked about some of these we've been recruiting, and I'm going to hit on some of the recruiting stuff that we haven't already talked about. A system administrator for Joe's department, conducted a number of interviews, reviewed a lot of resumes, have not found anybody. Joe has identified a possible solution working with a vendor that we do business with, where they provide a contract employee. So basically, the employee works for us, but is one of their employees. The cost is less than having an internal employee, assuming we could actually find one. But it will allow us to get some of the work done that we have had to put off because we don't have the resource. We've been going through the contract, and Joe has been talking with the vendor. We have not made any final decisions at this point, but this may be an opportunity for us to fill this position. And I will say that we are not alone in this. In talking with the other Colorado co-ops and other employers, if you have an IT position open, it's one that stays open for a while because it's really hard to find somebody to take it. And so this is an option for us. What it will potentially mean is that this individual will not be located in the United States. And so that's one of the challenges for us with time differences and other things that we will have to work through in order to be able to, have this solution work for us. So that's something that we are still working on. The GIS position that Adam referred to, when we reposted that, we posted it as remote work. We were unsuccessful in trying to find somebody that had the skill set that we needed that would move here to Granby. We had some possibilities that were interested in remote work. So we are hopeful that that will generate more interest in the position. And we have seen some applicants and are continuing to review those. Adam talked about the journeyman lineman that will hopefully be starting. I mentioned the manager of finance position, and we're just waiting on the final step in the pre-employment, and then we'll set a start date. The HR manager I mentioned, Angela Wallace, will start on December the 5th. We have posted a meter technician position. This is, we have an individual that will be leaving us, and they have told us that they're going to leave. They're retiring. And rather than fill that position as it was currently constructed, we looked at it, and Joe believes that we need resources within the meter technician group. And so, and that's really the majority of what this individual was doing. And so that position has been posted. We also posted, as Adam mentioned, the staff engineer position. This was something that we included in the budget that would be an additional resource for us. And one of the reasons that we were able to combine and get some of the synergies from a combined operation and engineering is that we have another engineering resource. That one is that a position that we believe is going to be difficult to fill as well. But we're working on that. The fleet mechanic that Adam mentioned, that individual is, I would say, quasi-retiring, but they're relocating to Wyoming. And they listed their house and sold it here quickly, and have acquired a house in Wyoming and will be moving there. I believe that we have some applicants that we're reviewing. This was something that we had anticipated would happen in 23. It's happening sooner than we thought, so it's not something that we were unprepared for. So with that, my comments and the report be updated in CTO as well. If there are any questions on HR, be happy to try and address those. Thank you for letting me off easy today, guys.
Thanks, Mark. Rob, member relations.
Okay, good morning, everybody. A couple of things to add to my report. The streetlight tariff that you all passed and approved, the change to it at last month's board meeting, that notice will appear in the local papers starting, I believe it's next week. And so we will do the 30-day notice and with the plan to go ahead and make that change active January 1st of next year. So heads up on that. The capital credit retirement that at your April board meeting you approved to make effective in December. We have a press release ready that will appear in the December Colorado Country Life magazine. It will appear in the newspapers either the last week of November or the first week of December. When the bill credit takes effect will be in December. So another heads up on that. Our holiday lighting contest, we are going to, that's on Facebook, on a Facebook page that we're creating special for the contest. We'll start communicating that contest either next week or the week after that before Thanksgiving. And we are coordinating with the local chambers of commerce. We have 3 of them kind of in agreement with us to judge the entries and help us decide who wins the contest. We've reached out to all the chambers, and actually we have 4 that have agreed and a couple that are discussing it. So kind of excited about that as an upcoming event that we have, sort of an online event. But to
Is there
engage,
a prize?
there is a prize. Yes, first prize is a $300 bill credit.
They'll pay for all the electricity that your lights use.
Yes. Second prize is $200 and third prize is $100 bill credits. So those are the prizes. And anyway, should be fun. So that is kind of what I wanted to add to my report. I'm happy to go through the trade school slides that we put together if you want me to do that, or if you just want to discuss the information in them, we can do that as well.
Why don't you, does anyone have any questions? And would you like to go through let's go through the slides, Rob.
Okay. Joe, do you want to queue them up for me?
Get him there in 1 second.
Okay, so as he's getting them ready, I'll just tell you. So my preliminary investigation was just into the program offerings and the cost of the programs, and then the length of time the programs took. And what I came up with is 2 schools, trade schools in the Denver area and 1 in Delta. And so here's the cover slide I see. Joe, go ahead and advance the slide. And so there's 3.
One of the things that I will say is Rob did a lot of work on this and appreciate the hard work that he put into it. There were more schools that he identified, but several of the schools provided similar programs. So what we are putting forward here is the one in looking at the programs that they provided, what we thought were the best options and the ones that were the most affordable.
Yes, and there you'll see some similarities here. The first one I'm highlighting here is in Delta. It's the Technical College of the Rockies. And you can see it's a partial list of their programs, but it includes most of the programs they have. I have listed here that they're up to 24 months. Some of them are much less. They're a matter of weeks. So if you're looking at like phlebotomy, for instance, that's a class that takes a matter of weeks, and that's on the lower end. That's $1,000 class. If you're looking at something like law enforcement or cosmetology, those are the 24-month programs that are closer to $10,000. And these are simply program costs. These are not room and board and all of that. So, but you can see here's the Delta school and what they offer. And it's a lot of things that I think Cray had on his list. So that's the first one. We'll take a look now at the second one, which is Emily Griffith there in Denver. Very similar offering of programs, very similar terms, up to 24 months, a little bit more expensive, $3,500 to $13,000 for all of these. But you can see, you know, it's everything from accounting, and some of them have a little different offerings. HVAC, welding seems to be in most of all of these. But computer networking, and then the mapping, the CAD and the BIM. BIM is just another program for mapping in which multiple users can work on the mapping at the same time. So anyway, there you go. There's automotive in there as well, and several apprenticeships. And then the Pickens College, which is in Aurora, smaller offering of classes here, but very similar classes, again, very similar terms, up to 24 months for what they offer. And the cost, the top end of the cost of these classes are about $12,000. This one does include veterinary assistance, which is a little different from the other ones, but the rest of the programs are quite similar. So I kind of have a feeling, as Mark alluded to, we could look at other schools, other programs, other trade schools, but costs seem to be fairly similar, at least in our region, for the cost of these classes and also the terms. I did look a little bit into, you know, what's required for you to go to school there. The first college I shared in Delta, you do need a high school graduate certificate or to have graduated from high school. But we can look into any other questions you might have or want to know about these trade schools. I'm happy to research this further, but initially I just wanted to focus on what are the programs, the terms, and the cost. And then the last slide I have is what Adam and Leah provided about the Mesa Hotline School. And so, you know, there's one program there, line worker certification. It's a 12-month program. Adam says it's 2 semesters. You wanted to know the cost with room and board, and that's what this cost is. It's the $20,000 to $27,000. It also includes the tools. I did provide on all the slides the websites. If the boards would like to look into those further on their own, you're sure welcome to do that. But this is what I have so far. So I'll just open it up for your discussion, thoughts, questions, any direction you might have as to information you would like us to research further for you.
are there any thoughts on what else we would need as we think about this?
Craig has his hand up.
Go ahead, Craig.
Rob, this is just perfect. I think it's the perfect next steps to what we talked about last month. And I think your research is, yeah, it brackets the costs. It all the certifications and trainings are exactly what we see in the newspaper and the help wanted ads. And so I think research wise, it's probably, like you say, the costs are going to be similar, you know, across different schools and so forth. So I think in terms of bracketing the costs, I think we're already there. And the job descriptions, it's just maybe how we move forward to implement. I did have one little question. The Mesa Hotline School, their symbol says Grand Junction, but the narrative says Lyman. So is it the Mesa one over in Junction?
Oh, that's a good question. I just grabbed their logo online. Adam, do you know the answer to that? Why
I
they would
do.
have?
I don't know why it says Lyman, but they're based out of Grand Junction for definitely.
Yeah, that's the one we.
Oh, okay.
donated
So that was
to.
my mistake. It should read Grand Junction, not Lyman. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I thought in the last month, Adam, you said something about there over in Lyman. Am I in?
So there's and maybe we're talking two different things, but there's another line school in Colorado Springs.
Oh,
It's actually the one I went to, but the Mesa Hotline School is definitely in Grand Junction.
okay. So that's a typo.
Yeah. So Rob, thanks a ton for doing this research. I think it's perfectly in line with what we were talking about. So thanks again.
Oh, my pleasure.
And as we
And-
talk, go ahead, Carl.
Rob, did you do any checking in the state of Wyoming? I know there used to be a pretty big trade school in Laramie called Wild Tech, and also one in Cheyenne, but they are probably closer to students from our territory than some of the ones that you mentioned in your report.
Yeah, good question, Carl. No, I'm familiar with Wyotech. I've driven by their campuses a number of times, but no, I did not check over there. I certainly could if you would like me to.
Well, I think it would be appropriate. Like I said, I think that's, closer to our territory than some of the places in Colorado. But I think the next step of this, and I appreciate what you put together here, but the next step would be to how do we promote it within the school districts or make sure students are aware of this opportunity and what is offered. And I haven't been in touch with schools for a long time, but I don't know how they handle that situation. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, and I think, Carl, as we move forward with this and the board discussion, what we will do is put together a communication plan on how we would outreach to schools, but then also, to Craig's point from last month, find a way to outreach to organizations that may serve individuals that are already out of school and they may be working in something but not a field that they would like to be in, and find a way to let them know about it in order to get more participation in trade schools.
Thank you.
And to build on the hotline school concept a little with folks who are interested in becoming linemen and working at mountain parks, I wonder if the trade schools, I mean, we talked about we're going to need mechanics. Is there any opportunity there to let folks know and to try to train up some local young people?
Well, and that's part of that communication plan, I think.
like an apprentice I mean, we have apprentice linemen, that's pretty well, that process is pretty well established through the lineman. Adam can speak better, but there's a process to become a journeyman. And I'm curious if we could think about some sort of process that might slot people who live here through those technical schools, and so that they can become a full-fledged mechanic at Mountain Parks eventually, or something like that. Just trying to throw that out there as we look for new staff. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, and to Carl's point, I don't think, Rob's examples are just to get a general sense of what's out there, but certainly like the college scholarships, I don't think we want to limit it to certain schools. We would let the students, select the technical vocational schools, and, hopefully that would include the Laramie site and so forth. But I think the price brackets and curriculum would be similar up there. But we wouldn't want to limit the students, to certain locations, just like we don't limit where the kids go to college.
Good point, Craig.
So if the board is okay with this, we will continue to work on this and maybe provide some more information in December, but put it on the agenda for a board discussion in January on how we might revise the program or target some of the scholarship money for trade schools, and how we would do outreach to individuals that are not currently in high school that may be working in our areas to fulfill some of the positions such as dental hygienist that there is obviously a need for.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. Any other questions on the member service report?
And
Sorry.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
And I would say that this might be a good time for a break. Liz, if you want to take one.
Yeah, let's take a 15-minute break. So we'll be back. Well, let's break until 9:45. Come back at 9:45. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Hauk.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
Good. How are you? Long week for you guys, huh? With the
Yeah.
summit and the GM stuff and today.
Yeah, I've been scrambling around and I don't have internet at my house, so
Oh, did you get more snow up there in Grand Lake than we did in Granby?
No, not really.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, we got a little skiff, that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What'd you get there?
Oh, I didn't measure it, but boy, I don't think it was an inch, less than an inch, it looked like.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah.
But that wind was pretty cold last night.
It
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, most of the snow ended up in Kansas, I think.
Yeah.
But I was happy I didn't have a flicker at my house.
Oh,
So
wow.
that held out well, you know?
We had a couple inches in Fraser.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Enough to shovel, Cray, or not really?
definitely shovel, yeah.
I think you shovel all the time, I bet, Craig.
I'm sitting at a friend's house. I gotta show you guys might not be appropriate, but this is where I'll have to turn around. It kind of feels weird where I'm sitting.
Jeff, is that why you're not on video most of the time? Because you're sitting behind that bar?
Well, I got here late and I've just been scrambling around.
I'm
Trying to
sure
find a spot.
if your words slur, I'm sure it has to do with the internet connection.
We get the fiber. All right. I guess I should, get back. Carl, are you back on?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
And I know that Kristen is on and Levi.
We're all good. So let's go on to bills for payment. Does anyone have any question on the bills for payment? Do you have a question, Justin? I think you were just unmuting or something.
Yes.
Okay, how about the credit cards? Any question on the credit cards? All right. Board open forum and associated reports. Jeff, you want to start with CREA?
Yeah, so we had a CREA board meeting down at the Energy Innovation Summit. Liz and Mark were there, and I think Mark, you were there for a class volt, right?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I don't know. You mean Liz and Mark can jump in too, but I thought it was a great. The summit was great. Again, it's their 13th one. I attended some breakout sessions on geothermal, EV technology, and microgrids, which are very interesting. And I was talking to Cray about it. I got to give him the card of that gal that we had lunch with. She's a head of the NREL lab for geothermal, and made just a little history for, I don't know if Kristen and maybe Justin don't remember or weren't there, but we actually looked at Hot Sulphur Springs at one point as a geothermal site. And I can't remember that. I know the test wells were really expensive and I just didn't pencil out, but it's in the energy mix as, a potential source. So they're looking at it.
Be
So maybe
interesting doing a new assessment, given some of the new technologies coming out that use
Yeah.
fracking tech.
Exactly. They talk about enhanced geothermal now, which I'm not sure I understand, but they're doing a whole lot of stuff with it. So, and let's see, as far as the meeting went, we had a lot of discussion about resource adequacy, potential bill. Sounds like that XL will introduce. They are am I saying this right? They're the load balancer for the state. Is that?
They control one of the load balancing areas.
Yeah, right. So they've been pushing for this. Hopefully this will be solved with an RTO if we get there. But in the meantime, the the energy office has kind of done some outreach to CRA, Tri-State, to try to get everybody in the same room and on board on this, until RTO is in place, just to kind of get a level playing field for everybody who's supplying power out there. So we did move into a support amend position on that, if that bill comes to the table, and it sounds like it probably will. Let's see. Oh, I took a class too. Reading from my notes here. Sorry. I took a class on policy at the CRA meeting. I think we're doing all the right things. The class seemed like exactly what the flow we do. Really good reminder though that, the board focuses on the end as far as policy, and staff focuses on the means. And I did not bring the budget with me. I left it back at my house.
I have those numbers if you need them, Jeff.
Yeah, you might fill in for me, Mark, but I know it's an average CRA dues increase of 3.5% in the AG. There's a safety increase as well, which I couldn't find.
9%.
And I had a spreadsheet to see how that's affected, how that affects mountain parks, as far as that actual percentage. And then again, there's going to be a postage increase on CCL. The dues increase comes from the leaving of Core, or formerly Intermountain. I think they contributed about $150,000 to CRA, as the biggest co-op in the state. CRA did a really good job. There's a lot of red lines in the budget. They've cut a lot of stuff to try to get as lean as possible. And I think they've done that, but of course everything's going up, and to continue to provide those core services that they do, that's where the increase comes from. So I don't know if you guys at some point want to have a discussion about that, or maybe Mark, you can infill those numbers if you have them in
Yes.
front of
So it's 3% in general and administrative. And as Jeff said, I've got a list of all of the cuts that they made. Their budget in general and administrative is actually less than the 2022 budget. The difference is that with Core leaving, and they were such a large part of it, it still requires, even after all those cuts, a 3% increase in general administrative, a 9% increase in safety and loss control. And the general administrative is kind of spread across to everybody. Safety and loss control is specific to the co-ops that utilize that service, and that's a 9% increase. And then on the CCL, they are projecting a 14.9% increase, and a lot of it's because of the reduction in the advertising that they have. And if the board wants to talk a little bit more about that in executive session, I can tell you some ideas that we have that will lessen the increase for mountain parks. The other thing is, as Jeff mentioned, was with the fact that they get mailed out, there is also an increase in the postage related to that. And I believe that that is included in that 14.9%.
Mm-hmm. And so the budget at CRA, so they presented this budget to us at this meeting. And then the thought is we take it back to our boards and have a discussion there. And then the budget will be voted on at the next CRA meeting. So if there's anything you guys want me to take back, any concerns or anything like that, but that's where it stands.
And what I can do is Jeff Wadsworth from Poudre Valley had raised some questions related to the budget, and Kent Singer, the executive director for CREA, responded with a detail of the things that they cut, and I'd be happy to send that to the board so that you can see the reductions that they made, the savings that they have. And even with those, you can't lose $140,000 in revenue and not probably increase even when you make the cuts that they did.
I think you sent that out because I've seen that document. So I think
okay.
Yeah, and I think with that document too, there is the work plan for CREA, and it details, there's strategic core essential functions that CRE provides. So I don't know. I mean, if you're not familiar with it, it's definitely worth reading what CRA does for, for the co-ops in the state. So
they provide some pretty valuable services to us. So, and they've had to adjust.
yeah. And I will say too, and Mark was there for this, and I might get this number wrong too, but NRECA dues, was that close to the 10%?
I believe 9.
9 something. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is driven by the fact that they own real estate, and it has typically provided revenue that has offset the dues, and they have lost revenue in the real estate that they own. And that's part of why they are needing the increase that they have. But it is an increase that will, although it is 9% on an annual basis, depending on where you are, because it renews on when you became a member of NRECA. And so it's about half of that is what they will actually see in increased revenue in 23. The other thing that I will mention about CREA is that most of the programs that they have are running at a deficit. And that was at the direction of the board, because the CREA had accumulated a fairly healthy cash balance. And the board decided that the way to reduce that cash balance was to run the various programs at a deficit. So the cost that co-ops are paying is not necessarily the cost of the program. And so it could, I guess that is to say that the increase could be worse, but they are still running them at a deficit.
Yeah. Well, one more thing I remembered is that they did get their safety manager position filled, and it's if I remember right, I think her name is Jenna Hirsch.
Yes.
And she comes from Tri-State, so she's got a really big background there. So I think that'll be a good. She's she wasn't a lineman, but sounds like she's got quite a skill set to head up the safety and loss control department at CREA.
Yeah, she did the safety and loss control for a Tri-State's generation, their plants.
Cray, it looked to me like you had a comment on the geothermal. I have the card person, and Tri-State also was asking about that. So, and we talked a little bit about whether there were, due to the new technology and also the various bills that have been passed, whether there's any money out there to explore that resource further. So I'll be following up, and I'll in the email chain Cray and Mark Johnston.
That's all I have, Liz. I don't know if you guys want to have any further discussion on, as far as the CREA budget, but I would guess that it would pass. I don't know, but I think it's valuable to us. So if you guys have any different thoughts, please let me know.
Oh, any questions on or thoughts on the CREA budget? I think seeing none. I think you have the support of the board, Jeff, to vote for the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Who's up next? Carl? Do you have a Tri-State report?
I do. Had a Tri-State board meeting November 2nd. During the committee meetings, Don Kearns brought up the rate design committee. And I know Liz couldn't attend the last meeting, but he said that the peaker method is the one that is coming to the top of the heap, and instructions were to have the rate design member bring it back to the local boards, and I'm sure it would take a education session to understand it, but they wanted some approval or if the local boards had any questions. So I'll leave that alone until Liz gives her report. Dwayne's report was that one of the positive things there with wildfire mitigation stuff, they're working, Tri-State is working on a master special use permit for vegetation management. And the possible ability that local co-ops can get involved or get onto this master special use permit is pretty good, Dwayne thought, but some contact needs to be made by the members to Tri-State to see what the procedure is and how it's progressing. So something to put on your calendar, Mark. The RTO decision will come in the spring. Excel is still dragging its feet, but SPP wants a commitment or a denial by March. So by March, we should know something more about joining the RTO. Dwayne expected natural gas prices to increase this winter, gave various reasons, which I'm sure you can see on the news, but then I have a little note too for executive session. They got their request for proposals back, and I can give you the range for what the proposals were, but I'd rather do that in the executive session. So other than that, I think the meeting brief was sent out by Dwayne and Tim. I think Mark forwarded those to you, and unless there's questions, that's all I have.
And Carl, they also discussed the master agreement with Forest Service at the managers meeting, and they are putting together something to send out to each of the co-ops, I believe, to if you want to participate in that. And the benefit of it is that they will get something with the Forest Service at the national level that will then be an agreement that applies to each of the individual Forest Service offices, because if you have two different Forest Service offices within your service territory, they don't necessarily always have the same guidelines or requirements. And that is something that Tri-State has been working with at the national level. And they asked the question, well, can we, include our co-ops that are part of us in this? And the answer was yes.
Well, that's good news. I certainly think that we would want to participate, but that's my opinion.
Carl, did you call it the peaker method?
Yes.
Okay.
Jeff?
Yeah, this question for Carl is, so you mentioned Excel's dragging their feet on the RTO, of course. But then Tri-State indicated, and I can't remember who else, that they'd be ready to do this by 2025. But the state law is, I might be wrong on this, but doesn't come into effect until 2030. Is that right?
I don't know about the state law, but the state law doesn't prohibit anybody from joining an RTO. So like I said, I can't speak on the state law, but Tri-State can join the RTO regardless, except that we don't have a big enough footprint. And that's why they have been trying to get XL involved, but they are still of the mindset that they can control their own destiny and don't need an RTO to do it, and they don't want to lose their balancing authority and put up their transmission lines in an RTO. So
Yeah, isn't that
what I can tell
so
you, Jeff.
I've heard it's the Colorado Pathways is the issue. They're trying to rate base that project, but
Yeah, that's what I think the president of XL suggested in the presentation on the morning presentation. I mean, he didn't say it that way, but that's what he was talking about. And I think to your question, Jeff, the state law requires the RTO by 2030, but there's nothing that prevents you from doing it sooner.
But if XL doesn't join, where does that leave Tri-State? Doesn't join, say, in 2025 or commit in March?
I think that's going to be a question for SPP, whether or not they will they'll take the other balancing authorities with the exclusion of XL, but I think XL is going to get a lot of pressure to move.
Okay.
Well, and Tri-State's of the opinion that with some of the other G&Ts around the west, like Black Hills and Deseret and Wapa and so on and so forth, that they can put together a footprint that would be attractive to SPP. So they are optimistic in that regard that even if XL keeps dragging its feet and doesn't join in, that we have enough to make it attractive.
Liz, I think Kristen.
Oh, go ahead, Kristen.
When people are done with Tri-State, I have a brief update on USTA grant making. Okay, yeah. Why don't you, well, I have a question on Tri-State for Carl. Carl, Tri-State's market authority to sell to non-members was revoked by FERC, and for serving members in the Missouri Basin. Could you comment on, and also that FERC said they will need to submit what their tariff is or the new rate that's cost-based for that if they want to sell in that market, and that they would have to refund depending on what that rate is. Do you have any inkling of, is that a 0.001% of Tri-State's annual revenue, or is it a 0.5%, or what does that look like?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
And I think Mark could comment further on the FERC issue, but I can't tell you that percentage, but I would imagine it's very small.
Liz, could you clarify a little bit? For the notes, I have Liz reported that Tri-State's authority to sell to non-members was revoked by FERC, and they'll need to use a filed rate, or am I misconstruing?
And I may be misstating the word revoke, denied, I guess. Perhaps Mark might clarify it. And it's in I was just looking to see if I could find the exact wording, because it's in the Missouri Basin coordinating area or something like that. So it sounded to me like it's, go ahead, Carl.
MISO.
Yeah, the ones that non-members that they sell into MISO, and it was part of one of their filings, and that's what was denied, because I don't believe that they had a specific tariff for that, and they weren't selling, my understanding, which is limited, they weren't selling at the tariffed rate to those non-members.
Yeah, it sounded to me like they were selling based on market conditions.
Yes. So it was either above or below the tariffed rate, and you can do that if you have a tariff that allows you to do that, but they don't have one, and that's why they were denied the ability to sell.
So I was just, I mean, I don't need to necessarily get down in the weeds on it. I was just curious how it affected Tri-State and their revenue stream. So that
I can reach out to our member relations person from Tri-State and get that information and forward it to the board.
okay. Thank you. Kristen.
Yeah, I attended last week a listening session hosted by the USDA. They're the federal agency that's going to be responsible for dispersing that 9.7 billion that was reserved for rural electric co-ops in the Inflation Reduction Act. So speaking for myself from the perspective of a former federal grant manager, I urged USDA to consider reserving a portion of funds for distribution co-ops, acknowledging that G&Ts were likely to get a lot of the funding, and they definitely showed up in force during the listening session. I also urged USDA to be mindful of the challenges faced by smaller co-ops with smaller staffs and encourage them to offer assistance to distribution co-ops that are unfamiliar with the federal grant-making process to increase their chances of success. And then after that, Kent Singer did reach out to me and thank me for my comments. So just wanted to report on that.
Liz, you're muted.
Thank you, Kristen. Mark, do you have any Western United update?
No meeting at Western United. There won't be one till I believe January. But I did attend CREA, the board operation and process. And like Jeff said, when you go to those classes, it makes it Mountain Park is we are a good co-op. We're on track. We're doing what we need to do. This one was particularly a lot of emphasis on hiring and roles of general manager. So it's pretty appropriate for what Mountain Parks is going through right now. But it was the last of the classes. I finally finished mine up through CRCA. So I hope they continue to do those classes. That is an excellent way. Craig, I know you've done yours online. The in-person ones are pretty well, other than I hope that's not where the COVID come from. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else have anything? Cray and I attended the sustainable building event that the staff put on. It was pretty well attended, interesting presentations, perhaps at a technical level that that certainly challenged some of the audience, but was in the wheelhouse of other members of the audience. So it was an interesting mix of people who attended, a bunch of high school students as well. A couple of things that I found interesting in that presentation was a comment by Holy Cross on the project that they supported. It's an all-electric building for workforce housing in the Roaring Fork Valley area. And as they were talking about, and it's, you know, it's air source heat pumps for heating and heat pumps for hot water and whatnot. As they were talking about the project, it was a complex project, but someone asked about how it was funded and how Holy Cross was able to support the donation they made to the project. And in reality, and this is what I remember, I may misstate it a little bit, but you know, Holy Cross has an adder on their bill, so they have a pot of money that they fund these projects with. But the way they decide which projects to fund, one of the metrics is what the cost per kWh saved would be. And in the discussion of that, the person presenting said, well, as long as it's under our wholesale energy cost, will, you know, if it's this particular project worked out to be 2 cents per kilowatt hour. And she said, well, that's below our wholesale energy cost of 2.5 cents, which got my attention. I may have heard it wrong, but that was pretty, you know, 2.5 cents is, they have a nice energy supply contract if that's what they're paying. Let's see. I also attended the CREA meeting, and Jeff hit on some of the interesting things. The battery technology breakout, a lot of discussion about solid state batteries and the benefits they bring and where those are in development. A company that reuses EV batteries, puts them in enclosures and uses them as backup. And because they're EV batteries, they have a lot higher output than, say, the typical home storage battery, because EVs batteries are built to discharge if you need to accelerate. And then a lot of discussion about microgrids. There was a breakout on that. And one of the things I found particularly interesting about the microgrid discussion was how you value resilience. If you do a return on investment on a microgrid, simply just thinking about the various services that microgrids can supply, it's really hard to quantitate the qualitative benefits of a microgrid. So, for example, keeping a hospital going, being able to keep a fuel pump running in a fire event. What is that worth to you, and how do you value it as you consider those microgrids? And I think that's going to be an interesting discussion going forward. Let's see. What on the rate design committee, Carl, you're right. I think I'm not sure if it was the peaker, but they are moving forward. They send out an analysis on how the various rates would affect each member. And I haven't looked at the presentation for Monday's meeting. Mountain Parks does not impact us as much as some of the other co-ops. There are impacts. I think the larger issue is the formula rate. And as the rate design committee started, we had a lot of discussions on keeping this rate simple and having it be in effect for 2 or 3 years. And then once the RTO was going and the costs change quite a bit and the PPAs go into place, that a new rate would be designed to go forward. And so this rate, we're talking about a formula rate that would be in place for quite a long time. And part of keeping the rate simple was having a large window for demand, a 10-hour window for demand. And there's a lot of concern, I think, that that's not what truly drives use in that window. Doesn't drive the cost. The cost is driven by a summer peak and a winter peak, and those windows are much narrower. And Tri-State would like the large window so that they can recover revenue and they have less volatility. But there are member co-ops who feel like they're getting dinged when they shouldn't get dinged. And that if this goes into a formula rate, it'll be in place for a long time, and it's the wrong way to charge for demand. So I think there's going to be some more discussions about if you're really going to have a formula rate, it needs to be, it shouldn't be a simple rate. It should have a summer and a winter peak price, and the window might need to be smaller. I don't know where that discussion will go, but I think there's definitely the staff. Staff would really like a formula rate. It helps with providing certainty to people who might finance Tri-State. It is more problematical for the members, I think. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. And I think Mark and I will have a discussion on some of the things they would like to put in a formula rate, including margins and deferred revenue. So they would basically require, where they would put in that formula rate that they need to hit a certain margin and they want to have a certain amount of deferred revenue. And then if
they don't make that number, then the next year it would be made up by increases in that rate. And I'm like, the whole point of deferred revenue, or the whole point of a formula rate to me is you don't need deferred revenue because it's based on actual costs and it should go up and down, and you don't need to set aside a pot of money. And furthermore, I'm not sure FERC would do that. The other question that I have is, as we talk about deferred revenue, is Tri-State when they say deferred revenue, are they meaning the contract termination payment comes in from United? Or are they just meaning, they overcharged for power? They had a great year selling power and their costs were less. So I think there's a distinction between those types of revenue. And it hasn't been clarified to me what they're actually talking about.
Liz, two questions. One, could you elaborate on what you mean by 10-hour window? What would that look like in practice, and how's that difference from how we currently get billed? And then second, I find your updates on a monthly basis very helpful. But I'm a visual learner. I would really appreciate if there's an opportunity to reserve some time at a future board meeting for a presentation on what this peak rate is that Carl mentioned, or how this works.
Okay.
So I can better understand. I don't know how other directors feel about that, but I don't feel like I have a firm grasp of what these alternatives look like.
Well, so that there's an average excess demand and a peaker method and the FERC principles, and they're all methods that have to do with how you proportion the costs of your system. And Mark could talk more about what goes into each one of those, but there are different ways of trying to assign costs to demand versus energy. And so I'll just leave it at that. We can have more of a discussion on it. The window, so what's being proposed in this rate is exactly how Tri-State charges right now for demand. The time window is the same. There's discussion whether, and Tri-State will, in their presentations, talk about how that that window captures almost everybody's peaks. And so all the co-ops sort of pay, a bit for that window. But from a cost causer perspective, it's the people that are driving the peak at, the summer peak, not at, not their peak at 1, it's their peak at 4. And there's some discussion about or the summer peak is higher and costs more than the winter peak. And that may not be completely true based on fuel. But like, should we break those periods out? Should there be should the peaks more closely, should the demand window more closely follow Tri-State's actual cost?
Gotcha. So like, for example, I've seen other utilities that have differentiated winter and summer rates. Usually the summer rates are more expensive, reflecting those higher summer peaks. So what likelihood do you think it is that the rate committee will wind up coming to agreement to go that route versus keeping everybody pays a little bit regardless of who's actually driving the cost in the summer heat?
I think it's going to be a hard discussion because the co-ops that have irrigation loads. But I think, I've tried to make the point at the rate design committee meetings that now that they're FERC regulated, FERC has principles on how they like to see rates designed. And yes, we can try a different rate. Tri-State can try a different rate and they can tell a story about that rate. And it's possible that FERC will approve that rate eventually. The more that rate diverges from FERC principles, the more likely it is that the more money is left on the table for a co-op or an industrial entity to challenge that rate. So that's, for the most part, how I approached it. I think that because of our load factor, we're not as affected as some of the other either really high load factor or low load factor co-ops. Mark, do you want to? But I think you're right, Kristen. We all could use an education on these different principles in rate design or different methods.
Yeah, I think that Liz is right. What Tri-State is trying to do, and their consultants are coming up with ways, is that there is the way that FERC wants you to file things. And these other methodologies are different directions on the way that you handle cost allocation and revenues. And they are discussing and looking at, whether or not they want to divert from something that if you file it that way, then it's almost a slam dunk that FERC approves it. If you do something different, then FERC is going to take a much more granular review of that, and you're going to have to make a strong case for doing something different than what they expect to see. And I think that that's the challenge, because the real issue comes in for Tri-State, in my opinion, is that if you file that rate and it is approved by FERC subject to refund. So it's not that, yes, that's the rate we're going to give you. It's just you can put it into place, but it's subject to refund. Is that Tri-State is then on the hook for any difference that is, if the rate that FERC approves is less, they have to refund the difference. And I don't think that Tri-State is in a position to do that in a long-term rate filing, which with the commission could be 2-3 years. And you can rack up some significant amount of money that you would have to give back. What my experience has been in the past in Anchorage, when we filed a rate and it was filed with the Alaska Commission and it was subject to refund, is we typically escrowed the difference between our current rate and the filed rate. And the reason that we did that was we did not want to spend that money and then have to give that money back. Because it can be a significant amount of money depending on how long it takes to get the final rate. The other thing is that typically there is a statutory interest that needs to be paid to people if you have to make a refund to them. If you escrow the money, typically the interest that you have to pay them back is whatever you made in the escrow. So in the last rate case that we had, that amount, and it wasn't even that long of a period of time, but for an organization our size, it was $5 million that we put into escrow. What we ended up having to give back was about $600,000. So at the end, we got the $4.4 million, but we had to give back the $600,000. The statutory interest rate for Alaska is 10.5%. And so it's a significant amount of interest if you have to give all that money back. And that, I think, is the real issue that Tri-State members need to look at by filing some other rate that is likely to be challenged, and have something else is that at some point you have to give it back. Tri-State, based on what Liz has shared, has said, okay, well, what that means is if we want to collect $5 and the commission a year later gives us $4, then we would just have to give back the $1 to the people that we over collected. But for those that we under collected, we could get the money from them. That's not the way it works. It's on a prospective basis. If you under collect, that's on you. You don't get to try and collect it in the future. If you over collect, you have to give that money back. So it really makes a difference, how much that ends up meaning. And with Tri-State and the amount of time, it could be $100 or $200 million. And that's a lot of money to have to return to members. To Liz's question about deferred revenue, it was discussed at the managers meeting. Tri-State has historically accounted for the buyout payments as deferred revenue, and they have utilized that money to offset losses. What they were talking about related to the formula rate is if they put something in place and they over collect, that they, the board of Tri-State, would decide whether or not to give that money back or to put it into deferred revenue. And they also talked about putting in as one of the components in the formula rate deferred revenue amount. It has been my experience with formula rates that you don't get to do that. You don't get to add in a margin or deferred revenue because that's why you have the formula rate. If you under collect, if you over collect, then the next period, whether it's a quarterly or an annual period, you then adjust your rate to give that money back or to collect that money. So to suggest that you will guarantee yourself a margin and then you might go ahead and just keep that because as an organization you need deferred revenue, I don't think that that ever makes it through FERC.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any more questions on the rate design committee? I have to admit, because I missed the last meeting and because of what else we've had going on, I'm not quite as sharp on the rate design committee details as I wish I was, but I will be spending some time later today, I hope, and over the weekend getting ready for Monday's meeting. Any other board reports? Okay, sorry, my agenda keeps going away because.
We're at old business.
Okay, any old business?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, any new business?
We do have two items on new business.
Okay.
And Headwaters Land Trust is the first item and their request.
Yes. So I got an email from, and Craig, do you want to talk about, do you need to go, would you like to go into executive session to discuss a conflict of interest, or do you feel comfortable discussing it in open session?
I think open session is fine with me.
Okay.
Should I go ahead, Liz?
Well, I'll just do a brief introduction. I got an email from Jeremy Crones about the Granby Highlands project. I wasn't certain how today would unwind. He suggested that he could come in and talk to us about it, and he may bring a board member, or he could probably bring a board member. And I just felt like it was too soon. I mean, I got the request less than a week before our meeting, or about a week before our meeting. I felt like we needed some more time to think about this, and he's willing to come talk to the board in December on it. It's an ask for $75,000 to help them complete that project, which is 780 acres of property with about 2 miles of Colorado River frontage. So I talked to him. I encouraged him to reach out to board members to see if they had questions or needed additional information. And I told him I hoped we would have we would make a decision one way or another at our December meeting. So, Craig, do you want to now go ahead and?
Yeah, just as a little background, I'd look to Liz and others for guidance on our conflict of interest policy. As most of you know, I was on the board of directors of Colorado Headwaters Land Trust for a number of years. I served 2 terms as president. I served 1 term as treasurer. I was involved in this project from its inception. Another item is on the budget. You'll see that OLRT which is Open Lands, Rivers and Trails, has already approved $750,000 towards this project. And that's the 0.3% sales tax that's for Grand County residents that was approved by the voters in 2016. And I was instrumental in helping the commissioners get that on the 2016 ballot. And I was campaign chairman for that effort. So currently I'm on the advisory board of directors for the land trust. So moderately involved. So I would look for guidance. I'm happy to remove myself from the meeting if that's deemed appropriate.
Levi, do you see any conflicts here that create any sort of legal liability?
Legal liability for who?
Well, for mountain parks, of course.
I'd want to go into executive session to give legal advice to the board about mountain parks. And as you all know, I'm not Cray's attorney, so I can't give him legal advice about whether
Right.
he has conflict.
Well, it seemed to me, based on our conflict of interest policy, which it talks about financial conflicts, that this is more a, it's a small community of people doing lots of different things. People serve on various boards besides the Mountain Parks Board and have various interests. I think being very upfront about, you just disclosed your various efforts. I don't have an issue with you discussing this with this board.
And Cray, you don't receive any money from Land Trust and you're not currently on the Land Trust board, is that right?
I'm not on the board of directors, but the Land Trust has an advisory board, which is composed of past board members, and I'm on that. We don't have any voting rights, but it's kind of the, I guess, institutional knowledge that sometimes the board and Jeremy relies on, from our past history. But no, I'm not a voting board of director. It's kind of an advisory board. And no, absolutely no financial. They look for donations rather than reimbursements.
Okay, does anyone have any issues with Cray remaining in this discussion? Okay. Have people had a chance to look at the proposal from the Land Trust about the project? And are there specific things you'd like to talk about today or specific things you would like Jeremy to address? Go ahead, Kristen.
I'd like to get a little clarification on public access. I know that has been a hot button issue for some voters who felt like they were approving funding for public lands that they would be able to publicly access, and then felt that some of those conservation easement projects that they're fenced out of, they wouldn't have voted for otherwise. So, also given that this is, member money that's being requested, would members have public access to this property, and is that guaranteed in the terms of the agreement? It seemed to allude to that, but I'd like clarification around that.
Okay, that's a good question to ask, Jeremy. I think, another funding source for this project is the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and they're specifically looking at habitat and some of the public access. Sometimes that conflicts with the habitat needs at certain times of the year. So I know certainly in Granby, there's some places where there's public trails, but they're closed for a few months of the year, either because of nesting or elk or sage grouse. Go ahead, Cray.
I guess it wouldn't be improper for me to just read off the project description narrative word for word for Kristen's question. The plan for this property after being conserved is to create a publicly accessible recreation area with multi-use trails on 480 acres, and a wildlife preserve to benefit all native species on the northern 300 acres of the property. The wildlife preserve area is adjacent to BLM parcels and other privately owned open space and includes the last known sage grouse breeding pair in the area. In partnership with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the entire property will be under a winter closure to benefit wildlife habitat and migration, as this will be one of the remaining migration corridors for wildlife crossing the county. So in summary, it's of the 780 acres total, 480 acres are open to the public, except for that winter migration wildlife portion.
And you don't have to have a membership at River Run to access that?
Yeah.
Well, I know, because the property is owned by the town of Granby.
Right. I think to back up a little bit, I think the town of Granby is, and this is something I was hoping to get clarified from Jeremy, but conserving the property, the effort to conserve the property has been going on for a while. The land trust has a timetable to try to get the project done that the town of Granby has decided on, and that should this project not go forward, the town of Granby could decide to sell the land. I know that there's been quite a bit of interest from the River Run side of things to pick up some. In fact, I have an associate who's over there and she, oh, we're going to develop this whole thing. And I'm like, huh, I thought the land trust was gonna. So I think that understanding the relationships, but I don't think the intent is to provide a private park for River Run. I think it's to provide 20 years from now to imagine what this area looks like and where people can go to enjoy the outdoors. I know from my perspective, living in Granby for the last nearly 30 years, being in the valley for the last 40 years, there are a lot of places that I used to go that I can't go now. And that's going to continue until people are only able to access BLM or Forest Service that's away, quite a ways from where they live. So that's just my 2 cents worth. Does it, Kristen, do you need more sort of more guarantees in the land? I mean, we certainly wouldn't be in a position to we could make if the board decides this is something they want to support, we could make our donation contingent upon certain language and an easement, but I'm guessing that would just complicate the ability of the land trust to negotiate an easement for the property. Do you need more?
I imagine if they're this far along, they already have the easement drawn up, maybe.
Yeah. Mark, Justin, do you have any thoughts?
I know, I mean, I had read also, I know that, $750,000 of our members' money via taxes is going to pay for this. So I just think we should be thinking of that also. I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but I do think that should be some consideration.
Right, right.
Where would our money come from Mountain Parks Electric?
I'm guessing it would be a community fund donation. It's sort of like what we did for the Mountain Family renovation. I can't imagine we have room in our budget next year to come up with, out of the operating budget. I was thinking this is more an investment in community. If the
You mean like the Community and Education Fund or separate?
So it would be unclaimed patronage.
Unclaimed capital credits.
Jeff, do you have any questions
Yeah.
or thoughts?
I was only able to read the first document in our board packet. I know there was some ones. Is that just all the legal portion of it that maybe Kristen is speaking to, the access and all that? Or, I mean, the general ask is $75,000 for a $75,000 donation for this.
Right. To help
Okay.
get the project done. There's some, we can resend it. There's some maps and then there's a budget. And so the documents are a map, a budget. I don't know. I looked at it last week, so I can't remember everything.
A narrative too.
Okay.
A document that's listed in there as a narrative of the project description. I believe that's probably what Craig may have been reading from.
Okay.
Are you guys, I'm going to plan to ask Jeremy to come to the December meeting to be available to answer questions and give a little presentation on where they are.
I'd appreciate that, and any kind of overview of the public access for members and community.
Okay, great.
And the town of Granby, they still own this portion of the original, which I know they've made out 4 times what they originally bought the whole property for, right?
Yeah, the question is, do they want to make out 10 times or 4 times good? I think that one of the things that I saw was that there was an appraisal done on the property, and I think it appraised at $4.5 million. Cray may know more about this than me, but so I'm not, and I didn't see the date on that appraisal. It may change a little bit. So Granby's looking at, okay, this is a property that, you know, our citizens, our town, you know, if we sold it, we could maybe get $4.5 million for it. And I think that they have decided that they would be willing to sell it or to put an easement on it for closer to $2 million and give up that $2 million of value. So yeah, it all depends on where you sit and how you view things. And
So,
for the Granby board, go ahead, Jeff.
so Liz, the purchase price is 2 million for the parcel, and then.
Well, I think so. I don't believe that Granby would, and these are all questions that Jeremy could.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the budget document, Liz.
Right, the ownership will not change. The town of Granby will still own the property. What will change is that it will not be developed, and there will be public access.
Okay, and who are the other contributors? Justin mentioned taxpayers. But
Yeah, so there's a outdoor land and there's a fund that
the Colorado Wildlife Habitat Program, the Gates Family Foundation, Muley Family Foundation, it looks like, other and community fundraising, and under corporate lists, Mountain Parks Electric. Liz, the appraisal according to the budget document was done in October of 19. It says that it's $4.3 million, and Granby is donating 65% of that, which gets to about 2.8, and then the needed funding for the project is about $1.5 million.
Go ahead, Craig.
Given my background, I can answer all these questions, but I think it's more appropriate to have Jeremy come, and maybe we take now or under executive session a straw vote on if there's any chance of, you know, is the amount 0? He doesn't need to come. And if there's some interest in a contribution, then we can have him come to the December meeting. But I'd rather have him address the questions rather than me. There's a long history to this property, you know, after the golf course development went belly up. So doing our best to save a really important part of the property. But yeah, I think it's more appropriate for Jeremy to answer all these questions, but
Yeah,
if there's,
I hear you, Craig.
yeah, if there's no interest, then we don't need to have them come.
All right. So based on what Craig just said, is there some interest in having Jeremy come? Who's interested in having Jeremy come? Well, let's just, we'll deal with this. We'll deal with this later in the meeting. Let's go to the Grand County Volleyball Club.
Okay, we received a request from the Grand County Volleyball Club 8058 Peak, and that happens to be the altitude of the high school in Granby. They are asking for us to be one of their sponsors, and there are 3 levels on the document. You see 3 levels of sponsors that are there: 2,500, 1,500, and 1,000. We asked them some additional questions, and the information I don't believe is in there, but ask if there were other club teams within the area. And this is a brand new club volleyball team. It's registered with USA Volleyball and the Rocky Mountain Region Volleyball Association. And based on their initial outreach to athletes, they will be able to fill 3 traveling teams, which will be under 13, under 14, and under 16. And then 2 development teams, which would be a middle school and high school team. And the players would come from both East and West Grand. And they will travel to tournaments in the Denver area during the season, which is November through April. And their hope is to cultivate teams that can compete at a higher level in the future. So this came in kind of at the last minute, and so we put it onto the agenda to see if the board had any interest in doing this sponsorship. One of my questions was, is the club affiliated with the high school, either East or West Grand? And the answer is no. And then the other information that they gave us is what we got back. So with that, I will open it up to the board.
Justin, you have some volleyball knowledge. What do you think? Do you know about this?
I do. I don't know. I guess my daughter signed up to potentially play with them, but I would abstain from a vote. But it doesn't make any difference to me. But we fund a lot of different clubs, programs, jerseys, all those things. So I'm indifferent.
Okay. Does anyone have any initial thoughts or questions about this? And did they, so this is more sort of a logo. I mean, we're supporting them, but we're getting a logo and a whatnot.
Logo, depending on which level you do, and I'll just read off the stuff from the lowest level. It's the business name or logo on the warm-up gear, social media, shout out, a small logo on the team banner, and then a thank you in the Sky High News.
Because to me, this is, we sponsor the rodeos, don't we?
Yes.
Other events. I mean, this is to me a little bit more, I mean, there are 2 parts. I guess I would say this supports youth. I like that. But also it supports us getting our logo and out there just as we do for other things. And I'm just making that point that this isn't, from the logo standpoint and the PR standpoint, it's not that different than some of the other things we do.
Are there boys and girls teams?
It said there were 60 people or kids. I don't know. Justin, do you know if it's boys and girls?
It says local girls in the top paragraph.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's all girls, but I know that I don't think I think a boy could play if they wanted, but I'm not sure.
And what I will tell the board is that we have sponsored, as Liz said, other clubs. And typically we have done it through the sponsorship. There just is no money left in the sponsorship for 2022. So we could potentially, do it in 23, but we can't do it at the beginning of their season.
So what's the ask? How much is it?
2,500, 1,500, or 1,000.
And it would come out of the community and education? Is that if we did something with it now?
For 2022, yes, it would have to come out of there. We could accommodate a similar request in 23 from the sponsorship account, but not now because we've spent left.
Is it a one-time request or this would be a yearly request?
This one is just for the 22-23 season, so it would be a one-time request. I would assume if we sponsor it, that they will come back next year for the 23-24 season to ask, and it would be up to the board. Well, actually, in that instance, we could probably accommodate it within the sponsorship budget, and so we could do it ongoing or not.
So you need a motion to that effect, Liz, if
If that's what the board desires.
Well, I'll make a motion and see what people are thinking, but I'd make a motion. We donate the $2,500 to the volleyball. Is that what it was, right? The highest level for the sponsorship?
That is the highest level, yes.
Okay.
Any discussion? Okay. Now the proof is going to be in the pudding. All those in favor?
Well, Mark, did you want to say something before the vote?
Give me with any appetite to go with the middle level or lower level? I'd have a bigger appetite to go the lower or middle level at this time.
Well, I mean, I'd like to see it pass at some level. So if that would be acceptable to everybody, or I'd like to see the 2,500, but if that, I don't know what Carl's thinking, but.
What are you thinking, Carl?
Well, I'm not thinking much. I mean, it's a benefit to your community. There's no mention of students from North Park or anything else. So I'm kind of negative on it at this point for sure, because it, like I said, it benefits some of the members of Mountain Parks, but not all. And if it does go through, I'd like to see Jeff include the amount that he's asking for in his motion. But I would be more in favor of the lesser amount, as Mark would be at this point, and maybe in 23, if it passes this time, we can go further.
Does it include do we get the press out of 1,000?
The difference between 2,500 and 1,500 is basically the size of your logo on the banner. And that's also the difference between 1,500 and 1,000. It's the size of your logo on the banner.
So I'll friendly amend it to 1,500 if that would help.
Carl, would it help you if, I mean, this clearly it seems to me the team is going to practice at the East Grand High School, but it will allow West Grand students to participate and travel. Would it be worth it if we reached out to these organizers and asked them if they would allow North Park students, students, players to play?
Why, certainly.
Okay.
As well as West Grand.
Well, West Grand's included.
West Grand's already in it.
They're already in, okay.
Yeah. So if Jeff wanted to amend his motion to have the amount and then the donation be contingent upon, or sponsorship, contingent upon the allowing East or North Park students to participate. I think that's what Carl's looking for.
That sounds great. I would make that amendment.
Seconded.
Okay, so could you restate the motion, Jeff?
So the motion would be to donate the 1,500 out of the community and educational trust for the volleyball club, with the inclusion of all the school districts in our service territory.
Great. Thank you. Is there a second?
Kristen was your second.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's take, oh, do we have any emergency business?
No, but this, just for the board's information, this will come up for ratification in December because it was not on the agenda 10 days before.
Okay, Mountain Park Services meeting, any reason to have one? Okay, let's take a 15-minute break and then go, well, let's go into executive session and then take a 15-minute break. And the executive session will be to discuss
legal update.
Legal update.
I would like to discuss with the board the topic that the member wanted to discuss in public comment, but never showed up for, just so that the board is aware of it. If the board is interested, we can talk about CCL and how we will address the budget or the increase related to that. And then I had put down RFP, and I think that was something from Tri-State that Carl had mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, if you want that information, please put it on the agenda.
Yeah, that we
Mark,
do.
what was the one before that? Sorry, didn't catch it.
The one before that is ECL budget increase.
Okay.
Okay, and we don't need anything for the Winter Park land, so.
Unless somebody has a question, and there's not much more to tell you guys than what I said in open session.
Kristen, do you have
The motion is going to include budget increases for CCL, legal matters, and tri-state requests for proposals. Anything else?
The member issue that was to be discussed in the public comment.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and make that motion then, Kristen, if you got those down.
I do.
Okay.
all in favor?
Who seconded that?
Justin.
Justin, yeah. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, let's come back at 11:15.